Hey guys! This week we will have a quick episode cause I'm on holiday, but I do have a topic that might be useful for quite a lot of you, namely aiming with your main guns in World of Warships. Now, this is a subject that's surprisingly missing guides overall compared to the other aspects of the game, despite it being one of the main and most difficult things to learn for any new player. I mean, for sure there are guides for weak spots, a link to a really cool one you can find also in the description below, and when to choose HE versus AP against the various ship types, but where to aim exactly to hit the enemy warships in general, that's actually surprisingly lacking, or the guides are very vague most of the time. Now, there is a simple explanation for that. Precise aiming is dependent from a surprisingly long list of factors in World of Warships, so you can't really come up with a foolproof solution that will work in every situation. In theory, you have to consider both your and your enemy's speed and relative course to each other, together with the distance, in order to guess where you have to pre-aim, so even after a very long shell flight time, you can hit the enemy over many kilometers away. Effective gunning is a surprisingly skill-based aspect of the game, and that's something that makes the game also a lot of fun. Now, this guide won't pretend to give you the holy grail either, but I have a system that can be easily used with good effect for your first ranging shots. You definitely should adjust after you did see where your shells did actually land, but hopefully you won't need much adjustment with this guide, and you should have a good chance scoring a couple of hits even with your first salvo. Now it's important to mention that this guide works best when both ships go full steam ahead in a straight line about parallel to each other. While this might sound awfully specific, these conditions happen more than you might think, even in higher tier games. And suboptimal conditions only mean that you will probably have to adjust your shots just a little bit more after your first shells land in the water. Besides, the aim of these guides is to help you out until you get the feel for things. Soon, you will know where to aim without doing any calculations in your head. Now we will look at suggestions on leading your shots separate against battleships, cruisers and destroyers for short, mid and long-range shots. But before we do that, let's have a quick look at the aiming indicator used in the game. When zooming in for your shot, you will see a scale on both sides of your reticle. To be exact, you will see 7 larger and 8 smaller vertical lines. These are there to help you adjust your lead on your shots while engaging the enemy. For example, with your first shot, you placed your aim so the front of the enemy ship lies on the 4th larger vertical line, and the bottom of the scale lines up with the water line of the ship. You fire your guns, but find that your shells land somewhat behind the enemy ship, indicating that you did not give enough lead. Now you can adjust your aim and lead by placing the front of the ship to the 6th larger vertical line, and this time you are spot on. During this guide, I'm trying to give you a rule of thumb rather than a very precise value for each situation. So for the suggested lead, I will refer to the 7 large lines, aka the whole scale on one side of your reticle, as 1 unit. Don't worry though, all will become clear with the examples. First of all, let's kick things off with aiming at battleships. These huge lumbering beasts are easy targets when they sail in a straight line, but you have to make sure that your shots count from the first salvo against them before they can reload their monster guns. They are typically the slowest targets you will be shooting at, so they also require the least amount of lead as well for your shots. Most of the time they get easily spotted, so if you have the firing range, you will often have the possibility for some long-range salvos against them. From an about 18 to 20 km range, you will have to lead your shots with about 2.5 units, meaning that you place your reticle about 17 large lines ahead of the front of the enemy ship. As you close the distance, the necessary lead is reduced drastically. At mid-range from about 10 to 12 km away, you only need 1 unit lead against these slow-moving beasts, meaning that you place the front of the enemy ship around its 7th large vertical line. Even closer, around 4 to 6 km away, so basically at point-blank range, you have to aim at the tip of the enemy ship, as the shell travel time is reduced greatly from such a short distance. A quick note on the video example for this part. The target, this time around, is actually a backwards moving cruiser and not a battleship, but that should be still a good enough example for a slower moving target. Now, shooting at cruisers is a completely different task, and to no one's surprise, you will have to lead your shots more against them, as they are in general a lot faster than battleships. Long-range fire against cruisers can be tricky, but it's not impossible. From about 18 to 20 km distance, you will have to lead your shells about 3.5 units, which is hell of a lot, but landing some high-caliber shells on such soft targets from across the map will feel super rewarding. And it will piss them off real bad for an added bonus. Now getting to a mid-range encounter, cruisers are super dangerous, so let's deal with them as fast as possible. From about 10 to 12 km distance, you will want to lead your shots with about 1.5 units to help you land some hits already with your ranging shots. And finally, even at close range at about 4 to 6 km distance, you will have to lead your shots just a little. About half a unit will do just nicely even against the fastest cruisers. And last but not least, the menace of the seas, the destroyers. Shooting at these little buggers is not an easy task, and should be mostly attempted only by ships with a good rate of fire and fast-turning turrets, unless it's for self-defense, of course. They are the quickest of the bunch, so they will require a very long lead time for most of your shots. So much so that in fact the long-range shots are really not advised against them, even if they get spotted at such a distance. In most cases, you will have something better to shoot at in the time your guns would take to reload. Medium range is different, and you can absolutely engage them at around 10 to 12 km already, but make sure you give them about 2.5 units lead and pray that they don't change course while your shells are still mid-air. Even at close range about 4 to 6 km away, you will have to give them quite a lot of lead. I suggest 1.5 units to begin with. The sooner they go down, the sooner you will be safe from their torpedoes. So, this was my little guide on how to lead your shots against the various ship types. I hope you will find this useful in your next games, and it will help you get the feel of it a little bit easier. If you liked the video, thank you for considering giving it a like or sharing it. Next week there will be another episode of fail compilations, including some of the replays you guys did send in. Keep them coming, boys, they are awesome. Enjoy your weekend, ladies and gents, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.